Hello, everyone. Welcome to our group case project, Part B, Education 5314. My name is Nilufar Fatih,
My name is Aisha Ardahanli.
and now we're going to start our PowerPoint presentation about our case. All right, so we're going to give you some background information about our case. There have been an issue of gun violence in the past history for United States and Canada, and I'm going to read a quote about gun violence in America and Canadian schools is an ongoing tragedy that goes substantially beyond its roots in the interlocking emotional and behavioral issues of mental health and bullying. Basically, they're explaining that gun violence does not depend on mental issues or bullying cases. Therefore, in the United States, they decided to come up with some federal legislatures in 1990 where they provided gun-free zones in schools. And in 1994, they made sure that schools are implementing those laws or they would lose the federal funds. And in Canada, at the same time, they made sure that they strengthened the laws on the requirement of owning firearms. So the gun violence cases that are happening in the United States or in Canada basically raised a lot of concern for parents, teachers, and school administrations, officials, and everyone. So therefore, they decided to make sure that they revised school policies and they also make sure that they are strengthening the implementation of those policies.
What's the matter? What's the case? A simple joke that lead to a serious safety concern. And I would like to give you some background information about the community and school and the significant people in this case. And the school is located in southeast of Anytown, United States. Anytown is a big city with a population of about 2 million people. In the southeast of any town, there are lots of low-income apartment complexes as well as old houses where predominantly low-income families reside. The southeast of any town has many public schools to house all the school-age children of the city. The public transportation actually available in the any town are occasional metros that run throughout the day, but people mainly have to rely on their personal transportation. Since the families cannot afford to have more than one or two vehicles in the family, the students are either walking, taking the metro to school, being transported by the parents, or taking the school bus if it is available. There are occasional community-based events in the area for the community. However, due the large population and the busy work life of the people, it's hard to have productive community and receive active participation in any kind of event. Most of the adults, because of that reason, have need more than one job, and parents need to work in alternating shifts as they cannot afford any childcare. And the school name is Gilman High School. School houses 955 high school students in grades 9 to 12. Actually, the school was established in 1975 and has been teaching students primary of various demographics. Currently, I would like to talk about the school demographic. The demographic are actually 45% Hispanics, 37% Black, 12% Asian. Actually, the rest of the 6% of students identified themselves as other. The school is proud of providing with the quality education in arts and advanced academics with opportunity in career-based classes such as welding, cosmetology, personal finance, and engineering. Also, there are a variety of opportunity in sports such girls volleyball, boys soccer team, basketballs, and many others. And then I would like to give some information about the significant person, Mr. Bean. Mr. Bean, he is the principal in the school, and for the past 3 years, and he has served as a principal in different states. Mr. Bean has been working hard in the attempt of hiring a teacher to bring up students' academic performance level. It has been a great challenge to the low teacher retention level. Ever since Mr. Bean came, the students are happy about the sports and arts, where he has been focusing. However, the discipline has been the same regardless of anything he had tried. He even hired his second dean of discipline for ninth and 10th grade students. Mr. Bean he is pretty new to this community and he has great expectations from parents, which he is not receiving unfortunately. Mr. Bean does make sure that safety inside school is in place by actively monitoring students in the school, but he has held any events for awareness about students' social media, which he believes that students and parents should be accountable of. And Anthony Smith is the student and the second child of the four boys of a single mother, Miss Smith. Anthony is a smart student with some behavioral issue, but with no records of any serious misconduct. Anthony's academic performance is not very high due to failing to completing any assignment. Anthony is in the engineering program of the school because he wants to be an engineer in the future. He loves technology. He spent a lot of time on social media and there is not much control over that since his mother is too busy with work and his two younger siblings. Anthony was upset about his father leaving them 2 years ago and started speaking to people and especially after finished middle school and transferred to Gilman High School. And Anthony's mother, Miss Smith, is a medical assistant at a local clinic and works Monday through Saturday. Her two younger sons are in first and third grade, so he's mostly with them during the week after work. On Saturdays, her oldest son watches over the younger kids, which Anthony tries to help at home from time to time. She thinks that her kids are great kids and would never do anything to hurt anyone. She's really upset because she sends her kids to learn and to keep away from trouble. Miss Smith is upset that school never contacted her about anything before this and that the school should be teaching kids about this issue and how to safe use technology.
All right. It brings us to our central problem, which is basically where Anthony gets in trouble because he makes an online thread about conducting a school shooting on social media. The schools go on lockdown, and the responsible student, which is Anthony, is identified and then taken into custody. So Mrs. Smith, Anthony's mother, obviously, as Miss Aisha mentioned, gets upset about it because she mentions that, how come this is the first time she's getting mentioned about it, and this is already too late because he's already being expelled from school. And she does blame the school for not educating him properly of how to use it safely, and she thinks it's the school's sole responsibility. So our question is, who's responsible, and what are the secondary problems that it's going to lead us into?
Yes, I'm going to continue about the secondary problem. The central problem actually it caused some problem actually in the aftermath of the threats. There are concerned parents who wants to pull their kids out of the school due to the safety concern of the school, and actually other students attempted to make this joke again. What do you think about this, Nilüfer?
So basically the secondary problem that we're mentioning is that the students are going to think that it's funny because they kind of were not aware about this, the consequences. I mean, they're aware about it, but they're not fully aware of how it's going to lead them into certain consequences. So it could lead to possible recurrences of the same incidents for maybe attention. And because essentially students are not understanding how serious the situation is. So, and there is a general misconception for students below age of 17, as Prosecutor Lomer states from one of our sources. he states that right now these kids think that they will be able to get away with it and go see a counselor and then just get to home that night. However, that's not the situation, as we will see from our next information.
Yes. And there are some supporting information about what many students don't realize is that their actions could have serious consequences that could stay with them for life. Once an individual is 17, they are treated as an adult and can face a misdemeanor or felony charge of making a terroristic threat. It's a charge Attorney Scott Rosenblum warns freedom of speech won't protect. The First Amendment gives you a lot of coverage, especially in the social media world, but it's not completely unbridled coverage and protection. And if you start making those types of threats, it's certainly a violation of the law and you subject yourself to harsh punishment. Also, Rosenblum said that potentially you can go to the jail, and then in addition to that, you lose your right to vote, or also you lose your right to serve on a jury, and you lose your right for a firearm. Anyone who is under the age of 17, which is going to cover the vast majority of students, especially in our high school and middle school, they are part of the juvenile system. It's really incumbent on the juvenile system to be aggressive and work cooperatively with the schools so they can identify these kids and try to sort out what's really real and what's not real, he said.
Right. So basically, he's saying that they need some help from the school to identify the kids who are possibly at risk or potentially going to cause any of these problems. So basically, we have certain solutions for that, and some of our solutions are basically ensuring that the school is safe, and which they did actually by making a lockdown. And then the school principal has to familiarize himself with the situation better to protect the school and basically avoid losing the students and making sure that their students are all safe. And in order to do that, basically he has to gain some information about these and make sure that everyone else is aware about it.
And which solution do you suggest for overcoming these problems, Nilüfer? Which possible solution for this principle, maybe?
Right. I think the first one, the solution he did take place. Which did take place, which was going into lockdown. It was successful, so they did make sure that they went to lockdown to save the situation and making sure that the students are safe until they clear the lockers and making sure there's nothing dangerous in there. But the second one is something that the principal has to basically work on, because obviously from the background, I remember, as you mentioned, Ms. Aisha, you were saying that the principal has a lot of expectations from the parents. But in this case, we don't think that the parents are solely, they are responsible for it, and also the student is responsible, but he can't have so much expectation just from the parents alone. And he also has to make sure that all his staff are aware about the situation as well.
And actually, what do you think about the advantage or disadvantage about the school safety?
Well, I think the advantages definitely outweigh the disadvantages. Well, I would say the advantage is that the students are safe, obviously, so that's the best advantage out there. And then the disadvantage was that, because of a simple joke, the students lost the whole school day. But the other important disadvantage was that, actually it was a big deal because all of the parents, I'm sure, were very, very scared about this. And it was very, difficult for all of them.
Oh, thank you, Nilüfer. And actually, I would like to ask you, what action would you suggest principal and his team to take as a solution?
Well, as an effective principal from the course that we have learned, we know that he has to delegate some responsibilities to his team members, such as staff and other administrators, and making sure that they're all helping. But what they need to do is, as you're just asking, they need to be proactive to make sure that they're avoiding future similar incidences. by holding like maybe meetings, workshops with students, discussing the consequences, and maybe refreshing the, I guess, the policies. And of course, communicating with the parents immediately about the safety of the students, and also maybe invite the parents to contribute to reach the safety of the school, which is their goal.
Oh, and actually, could you please elaborate on the implementation of this solution?
Right, as we mentioned earlier, that we said that we have to make sure that school is gathering the students to have events that would help them, I guess, remember the policies, making sure by basically clearly explaining the policies that are going to show the expectations from the students, define the rights and the responsibilities from the students and the other staff members, and making sure that they know what are the consequences if they were to violate any of those policies. And this is one of the advantages of this is making sure that the school is, I guess, safe at the same time. Like Ms. Smith is complaining at this moment, is saying that she didn't know or who's at risk or whose responsibility it is. If these school policies, I'm sure, were given out in the student handbook at the beginning of the year, then the school would be safe because they do expect the students to make sure read and know the rules and the policies.
Well, as you said that we can avoid the second problem by refreshing the school policy again.
Definitely, yes. You're right.
And actually, after the refreshing the some school policy, maybe the principal he need to set up a meeting with the student's mother, and the principal should have held a meeting with Ms. Smith, explaining the situation and that it was a matter for official to deal with.
Right. And so maybe because we do remember the fact that Mr. Smith did think that it was not his responsibility, but it was the parents' responsibility to educate the kid about the safety, internet safety, and all that stuff, but not specifically his. So he has to probably change that that type of thinking. So basically, we have some suggestions on those implementations for this, obviously, as we discussed before. And we did mention that the student, the parent, school, teacher, and the community, they need to, act together collaboratively as you see in this puzzle, so that they could be successful. They all have responsibility to make sure that they do teach their kids about the safety of the social media. So we have an example, for instance, on the right. As you can see, we named it Safe Book in here. Well, we found the image from some of the sources. Basically, this one clearly explains some of the rules that your parents and teachers should be aware of. For instance, parents and teachers need to be aware of the social media, and they need to know the advantages and disadvantages. And like one of the suggestions was that the parents and teachers should probably create a social media, even if they're not if they don't have enough time to avoid these situations, if their kids are going to have an account on that social media. And this is important because the kids do have a social media, but if the parent doesn't know what are the settings, what are the safety issues, or how can the privacy be saved, then they wouldn't be able to help. They need to make sure they have that, and they need to educate their kids. For instance, they need to make sure that they give them good tips about do's and don'ts. So, for instance, if they had a friend who did say something alarming as this one, a friend could initially right away make sure that he doesn't stay silent, but inform a parent or maybe a teacher, someone that they could trust, and maybe help their friend. And the other one is if there was like a bullying situation, which is also common on social media, they need to make sure that they do not respond to that, and also making sure that they're basically saving that information and deleting that person from their social media. And they need to become friends only connect with the people who are their friends, and also making sure that they think before they post. Sometimes we do think that it's social media, and the students and maybe even adults, they'll forget that they're actually influential, even if they're just not dealing with people face to face. They could be hurtful, so they need to make sure that they're kind, they're not using any hurtful words towards others. They need to make sure that they protect themselves also from basically sharing their password or maybe keeping their private settings safe. And essentially, it's both maybe the schools and the parents' responsibility to teach the kids about these. But at the end of the day, it is going to be the consequences are going to end up, I guess, coming on the student who did use it improperly.
And in this point, as a principal, we can organize and offer an internet safety workshop to educate our parents, students, teachers, and staff actively.
Right. We did make sure that it is important that we show the right ways, but we have to create a platform how we can, I guess, relay our information. So this would be one of the great ways to actually invite people over, like, the community, the teachers, the parents, students, all at the same time, and talk about these issues, making clear what are of course, talking about it would be more influential or more effective if they did invite some professional who could come out there and talk about see the serious consequences that this could have if it were used improperly.
Yes, it's a big necessity.
Right, and then they could probably even have avoided the main dilemma that we were facing at the beginning. All right, and then I guess that completes our workshop, our PowerPoint. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for listening us.
Thank you.
Thank you.